Hey guys, my name's Griffin. Welcome to Timbertrain's Coffee Depot. Today I'm going to help you brew some espresso. So brewing manual espresso can be a little bit more difficult than kind of popping a K-cup in a Keurig, but I'll show you how to make it a little easier. So for brewing, you're going to need a few different things. First, obviously an espresso machine. This one's the Breville. It also has a built-in grinder. If you don't have this one, you can use any espresso machine, but you need a grinder as well. I'm also going to be using filtered water in this. I always say that filtered water is really necessary when brewing coffee because it plays such a huge role in the brewing process. So definitely use some filtered water. A tamper, most machines come with one. We have a scale today. I actually have two scales. One scale is going to be used for measuring the weight of the coffee in. The other scale is measuring the weight of the coffee out. If you don't have these fancy scales, a regular kitchen scale will do, but I always recommend having a scale nearby just to make it consistent. I also have a cup today, just for the espresso. When brewing, I like to go over vocabulary as well, because it helps us kind of understand everything a little bit better. So when we talk about the machine, there's a few different parts. The main one is the portafilter. In the portafilter is the basket. We also have the group head. That's what the portafilter goes into. It's where the water comes out. And in the group head is a shower screen. We also have our steam wand, of course, a tamper. And then when we begin to talk about parameters, that's what people say when they mean their recipe. We have a few different words we can use. So the first one is dose, and dose means how much dry coffee, how much grounds are going in the portafilter. Then the next thing we talk about is our yield, and that's how much liquid coffee is going to end up in the cup. So if you see, for example, our recipe today is going to be 80 grams dose, so how much dry coffee goes in, and it's going to be 39 grams yield, and that's how much liquid coffee is going to come out. So let's get started brewing. First, I'm going to grab our portafilter. I like to give it a nice wipe. This just helps clean out any coffee that might be still in there, and it dries off the surface so that when we put dry coffee in, nothing's sticking. I'll throw it on my scale, make sure it's tared, and then I'm going to throw it in the grinder. So again, for our recipe, we're looking for 18 grams in the portafilter. So I'm going to throw it back on the scale, check, just a little under, so I'm going to put in just a little bit more. That's perfect. A little too much. Okay, 18 grams perfect. I like to give 0.2 variance into this, so 18.2 or 17.8, perfectly fine. So the next part, distribution. So for distribution, what we're trying to do is level this mound, but I don't want to just use my finger because all that does is scoot the top layer around. It doesn't actually level anything. So what I'm going to do is make sure everything's just in there, and then I'm going to start using the palm of my hand to tap it gently. What this does is level the coffee bed, and it levels it throughout the whole portafilter. Once we're level, we can take it, give it a couple taps on the counter, just gently, and we're gonna tamp. So often people make tamping a little too complicated. They think they have to swirl or twist or tap it. It's totally fine. The easiest method is just the simplest. So what I'm gonna do is use my fingers on the side of the tamper, and that helps me gauge if it's level. And I'm just gonna go down, and I'm just gonna lean my body weight onto it. We don't need to crush it here. It's perfectly fine. Easy, done. So now before brewing, I'm gonna just wipe off any residual coffee we have on top. That helps it make it all clean. And we'll check to see how level the tamp was. So now we're ready to brew. Let me talk a little bit about what's gonna happen in the brewing phase. First off, we're gonna throw the portafilter in, try and hit start as soon as we can. And what's gonna happen is nothing's gonna come out. And that's perfect, because this is what we call the pre-infusion stage. So the first about 10 seconds of the brewing process, there's not gonna be any pressure building up, but there's gonna be a layer of water building up on our coffee surface. And what this is doing is kind of pre-saturating the grounds and getting them ready for that full pressure. So we're not gonna see any drips until the first 10 seconds or so, and then we'll see the stream start to come out. So again, we have our 18 grams, gonna throw it in, we're gonna look to have it brew for about 30 seconds, and we're gonna have our yield at around 39 grams. And so now we'll purge the machine, and this just helps get rid of any ground coffee that could be stuck to the screen that we talked about. So let's throw it in. Put it in there, grab our scale, and hit brew. So again, we have nothing happening, and the water's just kind of building up. This is the pre-infusion stage. And now we see our first streams around 8-9 seconds. So I'm watching the time, I'm watching the weight to see when to stop my shot. So the streams of the coffee can tell you a whole lot about how well you're brewing. If it starts gushing out, you know you've ground too coarse, you're allowing the water to flow through too quickly, and it's gonna create a shot that's not quite as pleasant. If you only get little driplets, little drops coming out, not a full stream, then you know you ground too fine, and you're preventing the water from getting through. This also makes an unpleasant shot. If you get streams that are nice and thin and steady, then you know you've nailed it and you've gotten close to the recipe. It's gonna be a lot better of a shot. So if you ground too coarse and the water flowed through too quickly at about 25 seconds, the shot tends to be a little more sour, a little more acidic, sometimes salty, and it's gonna be a little bit watery, not very pleasant. If you ground too fine and the shot takes about 35 seconds, you only see little drops coming out, that's kind of over extracting. And that's gonna taste a little papery, a little bitter, a little stringent, kind of leave a stain on your tongue. Not good as well. If you ground perfectly, you got the nice thin streams, and you nailed our recipe right at 30 seconds, the coffee will be more balanced with the acidity, have a great sweetness, and a creamy body. Now we've done our espresso portion. If you want to continue with us and learn how to steam milk well, please check out our milk steaming tutorial. For now, enjoy.